Hello everyone, it is my great pleasure to share my work right here with you. The title for this presentation is Human Motion Prediction using Adaptable Recurrent Neural Networks and Inverse Kinematics. My name is Ruixuan, along with my advisor Professor Changliu Liu. This work was supported by the Ford Motor Company. So in nowadays, human-robot collaboration becomes very popular. The main reason is that humans have more skill sets to do different tasks. But on the other hand, we don't like to do boring and not capable of doing heavy things. However, these disadvantages of human workers are actually the advantages of robot workers. Therefore, we want to use HRC to combine these features to enable better efficiency in applications like manufacturing. So in order to really facilitate HRC, there are two main concerns, safety and efficiency. So in order to simultaneously ensure these two concerns, we need to have high fidelity motion prediction. On the right is a video showing a qualitative result of our prediction. In our research, we aim to predict the human motion within the future 2 seconds, and we target to have the prediction error below several centimeters. And from our experiments, we observed that the prediction from 0 to 2 seconds by our method had the maximum prediction error around 4 centimeters. So in this work, we mainly focus on human arm motion prediction because the arms are the major parts that involve in the collaboration. So the problem can be visualized as in this figure. Given the n-step arm motion observation, we want to design a predictor that uses the observation to give the future m-step arm trajectory. So as we all know, there are many challenges in human motion prediction. First, human motion is complex in nature, but it is also simple in the sense that the relative motion between joints strictly follows the kinematic constraints. And second, different people have very different behavior due to their habits or body structure. It is difficult to comprehensively learn all possible behavior patterns. And third, during the work, some body parts might be invisible by the camera occasionally. So how to make the prediction robust to occlusion is also very important. So there exist many works that try to predict human motion. There exist works that try to use structural neural networks to encode the physical constraints. However, this encoding method makes the framework complex and difficult to scale. In order to account the individual differences in motion behavior, there are works using adaptable neural networks. Most of the works use recursive least square, which we observe might be unstable in the motion prediction context. And unfortunately, to the best of our knowledge, we didn't see any works that specifically consider the occlusion problem. So in our research, to solve the occlusion problem, we separated the problem to wrist prediction and arm prediction. This decoupled method will not have the error from the occluded joints accumulated to the wrist prediction. To explicitly encode the kinematics constraints, we use the model-based inverse kinematics. This makes the predicted motion strictly follows the physical property of the arm. And in order to account individual behavior differences, we proposed a modified Kalman filter for robust online adaptation. So before we dive into more details of the prediction model, I'm going to introduce some notations we use. We use W to denote the 3D position of the wrist. We use E to denote the 3D position of the elbow. And as shown in the right figure, we decompose the human arm into a 5 degree of freedom arm. And we use theta to denote the arm configuration in joint space. Then for the observation, it includes the position for the previous n steps. And the prediction is denoted using the hat symbol, and it includes the prediction for the future m steps. And each one of these position vectors P is constructed by stacking the wrist position and elbow position. And here we show the detailed full design of our model, and I will talk about the wrist prediction first. So the input to wrist prediction is the observation of the previous n steps wrist positions. The transition within a single STM cell is shown in this picture, and for each cell, it takes in 2 hidden states, the wrist observation, and outputs another 2 hidden states. Then the LSTM cell propagates for n steps. Then the first step wrist prediction is obtained using a linear layer connected to the last LSTM cell. The linear layer can be represented in this equation. The phi is the parameter matrix, and B is a constant bias. And we use RNN to denote the combination of the LSTM and the linear layer. and the unfolded RNN structure can be visualized in this bottom right picture. So that's the structure for the risk prediction. We can also see from this figure, for each step prediction, we use an RNN, which is constructed by LSTM and a linear output layer. And we iteratively predict for M steps. Then we're gonna move on to the arm prediction. So for arm prediction, as shown in the right figure, we decompose a human arm into a 5-degree of freedom manipulator. The shoulder joint is decomposed to 3 revolute joints, and the elbow is decomposed to 2 revolute joints, and the wrist is the end effector. So the inverse kinematics solves for the desired joint space configuration hat theta, where we know the desired end effector pose hat W, and the current configurations theta and W. So the typical IK can be solved using this equation. We added an A matrix to encode the individual differences in joint velocities, and note that this A matrix is adaptable. So for M-step arm prediction, we solve IK for each wrist prediction. And back to this figure, we can see the arm prediction is shown here. Given each wrist prediction, we use IK to solve the full arm prediction. And lastly, we move on to the online adaptation. So we propose a modified Kalman filter for online adaptation. So the adaptation system model can be written in this form. The phi is the parameters we want to adapt. In our case, it is the weight matrix for the linear upper layer and the A matrix in the IK. And the omega and V are the Gaussian white noise. And we can then adapt the parameters according to the algorithm. The conventional common gain is calculated on line 6. Then the parameter update step V is calculated on line 7 with EMA filtering. Then we update the parameter matrix phi on line 8. With that being said, this is a complete view of the motion prediction pipeline. So the MKF is constantly adjusting the parameters in RNN and IK to improve the performance. Then we can move on to the experiments. So we want to show that first, this method can generate accurate prediction. Second, it is able to adapt to unseen people and tasks. And third, it is stable when partial arm is occluded. So because there's no available data on this study, we first collected our data. As shown in this GIF, we use Lego assembly to simulate the situation in the industry. The human subject is given a set of Lego pieces on the desk, and the goal is to use these pieces to assemble and target object. This table shows how we use the data to test our method. The data includes 5 Lego tasks and 3 human subjects, and each human did each task for 3 trials. So we use the green part to train our model, we use the pink part to verify the capability of usual prediction, and we use the dark blue part to test adaptability on unseen humans, and we use the light blue part to test for unseen tasks. So in terms of comparison, we compared our method to several existing methods. The first 2 are based on fully connected neural networks. They were from this 2019 ACC paper. And the bottom 2 are based on LSTMs, which were from this paper in 2015. And we defined the error metric as following. This essentially describes the average prediction error for each prediction step. And for the experiments, we tested prediction horizon from 0 to 60 time steps, which corresponds to 0 to 2 seconds. So the first test is to test accuracy for usual prediction. From the right figure, we can see our method in red achieved the lowest prediction error. And we also noticed that there's no big difference in using adaptation here, which was expected, because the model has seen the same human doing the same tasks before. And the second test is for unseen humans. From the right figure, our method in red achieved the lowest error. Generally, the adaptations, either recursive least square or MKF, significantly decreased the prediction error, but recursive least square exploded for longer prediction steps. So we also applied MKF to fully connected neural networks to directly compare recursive least square and MKF. From the orange and blue dashed lines, we see MKF kept the error stable for longer steps. This indicates that first, MKF tends to be more stable than recursive least square in the human motion prediction context. And second, our model learned better features than fully connected neural networks. And the third test is for unseen tasks. Similar to the previous unseen human test, we can see the adaptation here also effectively reduced error. And our method in red achieved the lowest error. And the last test is occlusion test. So this test basically means that we want to show that our method remains stable even when the partial of the arm, say the elbow, is not visible. So for this test, we define the error metric as the following equation. Het O is the prediction with occlusion, and Het P is the regular prediction. So we use this because the algorithm is considered stable if the variation is small when predicting with and without occlusion. So from this table, we can see our method had no variation in wrist and the lowest variation in elbow. This is because we separate the wrist and elbow prediction. The occlusion of elbow does not impact the wrist. Also, the physical model we used helps the algorithm to achieve the lowest variation in elbow. So in conclusion, our work proposed a human arm motion prediction framework which combines data-driven learning-based RNN and the model-based IK. The experiments show that our method is capable of generating high-fidelity motion prediction. With the MKF online adaptation, this framework can adapt to unfamiliar people and tasks, and also maintain the high-fidelity performance. And lastly, it is stable when partial arm is occluded. And that leads to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for joining.